Good afternoon, everybody. It's a real pleasure to join you at this Community Energy Congress and to see and hear so many inspiring stories about what's happening to further the renewable energy agenda in Australia, especially at a time, as was just noted, where the political debate is so difficult. As was just noted, in 2008, the Greens and the Labor Party in the ACT formed the Parliamentary Agreement, and that started our ambitious climate action program, where we set ourselves a target to reduce emissions by 40% on 1990 levels by 2020. And over that time, moving through that, we've moved to having our 100% renewable electricity target by 2020. And we've now signed enough contracts that we will meet that goal. And so in just a couple of short years' time, the ACT will be fully powered by wind and solar for our electricity sector in the ACT. And we do brag about it because we're pretty proud of it, but we hope that it's also inspiring to others. And certainly in some of the lean recent years, the contracts that we've signed have been the only ones being signed for renewable energy in Australia. It did mean that we got some of the best prices ever seen for renewable energy in Australia, as low as $77 a megawatt hour for wind, which is really quite extraordinary and gives us a sense of the change in cost curves. We're now also moving to roll out up to 5,000 battery storage systems across the territory, which is the second largest rollout in the world behind Germany. So we're making some great progress, but as part of all that, in our 2012 Parliamentary Agreement between the Greens and the ALP, we undertook to support community energy in the territory, because we knew it was very important that whilst we were selling a lot of rights to large-scale wind and solar farms, we wanted the community to be part of that. And so we allocated 1 megawatt of capacity to support a local community renewable energy scheme at a feed-in tariff price commensurate to what was coming out of our large-scale solar auctions. And so that was at around up to $200 a megawatt hour. I think the community solar scheme is an important element of our renewable energy development program, and it's a complement to the large-scale feed-in tariffs, as well as our household-scale renewables. The community solar scheme allows our residents in the territory who aren't able to put panels on their own roofs, maybe living in an apartment or for some other reason were not able to participate in our feed-in tariff schemes. Having a scheme like this enables them to pool their resources and participate in a joint large-scale solar project. It allows them to own part of a solar generator that isn't on their own roof, but know that they are contributing directly to our 100% renewable energy target. The 1 megawatt size of the community solar scheme does make it one of the largest in the country, I understand, and we think that is an important contribution to helping to build this sector. Now, unfortunately, since 2012, we've perhaps not made as rapid a progress as we would have liked. In that time, the government has conducted 2 rounds of community solar scheme submissions, and none of the 3 proposals submitted in those 2 rounds met the government's requirement. But we are using those lessons to help us move forward and create a pathway towards approval of a successful project. I have recently become the ACT's Climate Change and Energy Minister a couple of months ago, and so I'm now looking very closely at why those bids were not successful and looking at how we can get that turned around so we can get on with this project fairly quickly, because I know that our community solar scheme in the ACT has been working extremely hard to get this project across the line. There is a significant number of interested investors in the ACT, both some larger scale ones and a lot of just individual investors who want to contribute, and so we need to get on and make this happen. I guess the experience is that getting the right mix of expertise, financing and community involvement has proven to be quite complex. We've had a commercial operator come forward who had all the right capabilities but hadn't got the community on board adequately, and perhaps the community side where the technical expertise was deemed to not be as strong as it might be. And so we need to find the right balance in getting those right. But as the new Minister, I am determined to press forward on this and make sure that it happens as soon as possible. The other interesting side of community solar for the ACT is that in addition to the specific community solar scheme, some of our industry has also pursued community investment in 2 of the wind farms that the ACT is purchasing from as part of our large-scale renewables auctions. So the 19.4 megawatt Canoe Bridge wind farm in Victoria, who was a successful bidder in our first auction in 2014, offered investment in the farm to all of its neighbours, which enhanced community support for the wind farm. and these days is considered to be a form of best practice community engagement. Similarly, the Sapphire 1 wind farm, which is another of our bidders, is looking at investigating community investment in its project. So having talked about all those practical things, and I think there's some good news in all of that, I thought it would be interesting to reflect briefly on a more philosophical element of community solar, and that is the question of ownership of power supply. Now, of course, historically in Australia, the government built the power stations. All of those coal-fired power stations that we're all now trying to close down were originally publicly funded. And this was because electricity was seen, amongst other reasons, as an essential public good. We all know the story subsequently of privatisation of the sector. When it comes to renewables, we've seen an interesting development where almost exclusively the renewables are privately built and operated. Now, I know this is the case because in a previous life as an activist and as an advocate for renewable energy, we weren't focused on who owned it. We were so desperate to get some renewable energy across the line that we would almost take it in any form. You know, the industry was so fledgling in Australia, and the government policy was so up and down that it was hard for anybody to get a foothold, that we simply were happy to get a project up and running and to see the growth of the renewables sector in Australia. But now we've got a situation where we haven't focused on that ownership, but we are seeing, through what's happened in South Australia and other parts of the country, interesting reflections on the importance of who owns our energy infrastructure. Certainly some of the consequences of what's been happening through the national market have been a result of companies gaming the system. And in my capacity as our Energy Minister, I'm involved in the conversations around AEMO, the National Energy Council and the like, and it's clear that companies are declining to come into the market in order to manipulate the spot price and maximise the returns. And so that raises fundamental questions about who owns power sources. And I think for me this raises important questions and goes to the issue of, I guess brings me back to community solar, the opportunity for the democratisation of the energy sector. It's very exciting to see so much power being generated by individual households and by community projects, and the potential for that to contribute to the democratisation of the energy supply and to shake up some of those issues that we are seeing in the national energy market. Energy security is an important consideration. That's something I do agree with the Prime Minister on. I disagree with the conclusions he draws from that. But I think the community sentiment that's been expressed in the take-up of household solar and now of batteries is an indication of community concern and a community desire to see a different approach to our energy system. So let me conclude. We've been giving cues down here so we know when we have to finish. But let me conclude simply by saying that I think the future of community energy in Australia is very bright, and there is no reason why the sector cannot grow rapidly. As I said, that community sentiment of wanting to take back some control of energy supply and the need to provide energy security and price security in our market indicates that this sector will only grow. And I look forward to certainly the ACT Community Solar Project getting off the ground and being an important part of that conversation. Thank you very much.